Hello, and welcome back to Anna Wolf in the Cabin. Now, today I have the absolute privilege of speaking with what I almost want to say my friends, but I have to remind myself that I've never met this person, and yet he's just always popped up on my social media feed, especially Instagram. And he carries forward a really incredible teaching, and it's called Reality Transurfing. And if you've ever wondered how to shift your reality, align your heart and mind, or step out of the pool of the world's pendulums, then this conversation is for you. And as Gabby Bernstein would put it, if you've landed here, it is no accident. Vlad, thank you so much for joining me on my podcast.
Wow, that was an awesome introduction. Thank you so much, Anna Wolf. It is an honor. I really appreciate you inviting me.
Thanks, my love. Yes. And, when I sent the message to have you on the show, I just knew you were going to reply. And I don't mean that blowing smoke up my bum, but
Mhm.
I just knew you would. It's almost like your messages resonated in a way that it almost felt past life. It's the only way I can put it. And when I started really going with that intuitively and researching you on all your platforms, I knew that I was right on the money. So, Vlad, I want to take the listener on your journey. Where did everything begin? How did transurfing first enter your life? Because I know you have a really enriching story that led you to this moment.
Okay, so I guess I have had a few kind of visceral reality violating mystical experiences. And so it's kind of hard to draw the line of like where did something start. You can kind of go back to the very beginning, but I can kind of give you my first spiritual awakening sort of moment, and then sort of the last, let's call it, not the last, but one of the last few like mystical experiences working with ayahuasca that put me on this path. And so when I was as long as I can remember as a child, I was always into deep questions like what is life? Is there a God? Ancient civilizations, all of that stuff. Ever since I was little, even philosophy, Plato, etc. And around university, began developing a weird fascination with outer space. And one of my friends at the time mentioned, like, "Hey, you ever thought about like intelligent life out there?" And that kind of implanted a seed. And over a period of time, I began getting really fascinated with the infinite night sky. And come my mid 20s, I would always like be staring up at the night sky. And come up my mid 20s, I was a bit of a party boy. Long story short, I was at my childhood friend's, his family's farm, and we were doing cocaine. Just to like be completely straight up and straightforward with you, we were doing cocaine, and we were doing a lot of cocaine. And I ended up on the roof. And at one moment, because of my fascination with the night sky, it was at the farm, and so there was very little light pollution, and you can basically like reach out and grab a star from the sky. And so I was just on the roof staring in the endless void. And something came over me where all of a sudden I stood up, I stretched out my arms, and I can remember this so viscerally. I said, "Show me the truth. I want to know what's real." Boom! Like a bomb went off inside of me, my pelvic area. And I didn't realize this until later, but and what it was, it began vibrating viscerally. And then all of a sudden, the night sky became literally alive. From a stationary canvas to stars moving back and forth, it begins breathing. And basically, I end up going into a full blown, like, kind of psychosis from there. I recovered relatively quickly, but basically, and then, wait, let me say this. Like, I missed an important part. Over that summer, I had over 12 for UAP experiences,
Wow.
and two out of body experiences. And when I say over 12 is because I stopped counting. And I'm not going to go into the details because I'd have to show you with my fingers or whatever. But it didn't involve any drugs at that point. But basically, it was the way it looks like, and you can see it in other people's videos, is like stars. Whether it's a cluster of 10 turning a cluster of 20, whether it's two stars coming out of the sky, separating and coming back together as I'm speaking about it, whether had it been a couple weeks since I'd seen them and I said, I miss my friends while I'm sitting on the balcony, and then two stars in parallel pop out of the night sky. And so all of this was kind of intermingled with intention. And so what I believe kind of happened there, in a sense, and the way I kind of put it was that because of my fascination with what was out there, the universe basically winked at me and was like, now it's time to look inside.
Well,
And so to kind of, and I have a few more stories like this, but I know we don't have all the time in the world.
we do. We
So
do. You can stretch those stories as much as you want.
okay, let me jump into, because I know we want to talk about reality transurfing. So I'm going to jump into kind of what put me on this path. So I had just gone deep into spirituality, like deep, deep, deep. I kind of understood now, not only did I have visceral mystical experiences that violated my reality, but also I began, I'm also a very practical person. I'm very logical. And so just from that basis of, okay, so we can toil with the physical world. And if you're trying to do stuff, the material world, we live in a material world. And so action is absolutely necessary. But I looked at what was fundamental. And to me, just from like also the intellectual pursuits, logic, and also the experiences I had, communicated to me that consciousness was fundamental. And so, just from a first principles perspective, and I can go to kind of like some of the more structured thinking around that a little bit later, but I'll just leave it at that. And so, I just dove right in because consciousness is what all is. And
Hmm.
so I just began becoming obsessed because it also unveiled so much beauty and mystery. And like you go into the spiritual schools of thought, and there's just so much fucking coolness. It's got the best drugs, it's got monsters, it's got gods, it's got the coolest stories. Spirituality in all of its wonderful tapestry of color, it just can provide so much. And so I dived in wholeheartedly. That said, okay, so then I started working with I started working with ayahuasca significant.
I love this. Can I just stop you there? This
Yeah.
timeline is extremely exciting and I think extremely relatable because to your point, there wasn't one moment. It was buildup of numerous moments
hmm
that led you to this point.
hmm Absolutely. Hey, you can't put your finger on one sort of thing. And so, but I am trying to draw a through line here. So I was working with ayahuasca quite significantly. Maybe I should tell the other one story, but let me just. I was working with. Yeah. I was working with this ayahuasca quite significantly, and probably basically like like a ceremony session per month throughout like over a year and a half, multiple ceremonies in within one session. And so I started off in the Amazon, and right away I was just visited by spirits nonstop. Like some people don't have this, some people do. Like it just depends. Ayahuasca meets you where you're at, and I'm just visited by the most beautiful, elaborate, unbelievable, ineffable, fucking just creatures that just show up and they make you do things and all that stuff. Anyways, but I found a shaman where I was living in Toronto at that time, so I didn't have to, travel to the Amazon every single month. Who was amazing. She's a total freaking badass. I don't want to put her age, but she's, say 60s or something like that. Tiny Mexican woman, coolest fucking story, taught by ayahuasca herself, by the medicine herself.
Oh.
No other like lineage or shaman or whatever, just purely taught by the medicine herself.
Can you give her a name? Can you?
I'm gonna say no, just
Okay.
because it's not fully legal in the area that. But if there are ways of finding her, if you're in Canada and Toronto area, there is an ayahuasca meetup group,
Okay.
and there's some prominent names and individuals there. And so, if you want to get involved, it's go exactly where I said and just start asking around, and you will find what you need to find. So this had been, it's one of my, so you always set an intention before going into ceremony. And I've been doing it quite significantly because, and I would take a month. I would learn a big lesson. She's one of my greatest teachers. And then I would go integrate it. And what I mean by integration is like literally put the lesson into real life and absorb it and, change myself in the transformation process. And so this one I've been doing a lot. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to go into the ceremony with. And I believe it was also, like, around Halloween time, and so, the energy was much more spooky than normal. So we're going around the table, everyone's setting their intentions, and it's about to get to me. I think they're like 2 people off, and I'm like, "What the frick am I gonna go in here with? What am I gonna say?" Um, and as soon as it gets to me, without even thinking, I just blurt out, "Teach me how to create in this life." And I didn't know in the moment why I said that. But looking back, there's been kind of like just so much friction in my life in some sort of way. And, I'm a tall guy. I'll be direct. I'm 6'2" and 3/4. I'm relatively handsome. I'm intelligent. I am funny. I'm charming relatively. I work my fucking ass off. But my entire fucking life, things just didn't quite work the way that they were supposed to. Like, there was just always friction. Something always happened. You know, I don't know how to put my finger on it exactly, but I can kind of leave it at that in a sense. And you get the sense. And so this is kind of funny. I was shown a few things and it's not very clear. It's not like, here's this image that happened and here's that, but I can kind of give you a jumbled soup and you can pick up out of it. So I was shown two things in this ceremony, and not just shown, but I felt it. And so that's what wisdom is. It's like when you go through an experience, I'm not saying I'm like, now wise in that sense, but I fucking felt it in my bones viscerally. I was stretched to the point where I was going to break and then I was let loose. So I can give you an example of this. And so one of the first lessons I was taught was that is also the first principle within the Kabbalion, which is the universe is mental. You have to purge on ayahuasca. You're either puking, you're crying, you're sweating, you're shaking. And this night I had to poop. And I had to poop, and I knew it was going to be a freaking big one. And I also took a huge ass dose. It was insane. It was a
Wow.
bit too much. And I asked, like, can you guys help me go to the washroom? But I'm going to go to the one upstairs because I want to leave the one downstairs for others because I know I'm going to have to do some business here. And so I go upstairs, I do my business, and then and ayahuasca kind of gives you a little bit break when you're doing your thing. I go to reach for the toilet paper, and as I'm reaching, my hand goes across my face, and before my eyes, like slits in reality begin tearing open.
Wow.
And I'm like, holy shit, please, like, either I'm gonna pass out, go into another dimension, but I'm like, ayahuasca, mother, like, please at least let me wipe my ass
Yeah.
before you take me out. I'm not going down like this. I'm not going down like this.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, she allowed me to continue my business. I was basically helped back down to my mat. One of the other visions and I'm kind of jumbling up a little bit, but one of the other visions that I had, again, because it's not linear, another vision that I had was it was going through these moments, and I can't really explain it, all these moments in my life where it was this contraction between giving and receiving, and that everything was being calculated and everything is intelligent and I don't know how to say this properly, but like everything is being seen.
Mm.
And the other principle that I learned was the principle of the mirror, and also this is the second principle within the Kabbalion, and I'm just like kind of relating it backwards. I didn't have this connection at the time, but it's what you give is what you receive. It's
Mm.
the principle of, I think, correspondence would be kind of the relation one to it. And so I felt viscerally in my bones that everything is not even this wooden desk that I just knocked on does not have consciousness. We are basically in the dream of God. Everything is mental, everything is intelligent, everything is always calculated no matter what. And so when I went home that night or that day, for 4 days afterwards, I was literally in bed, shaking, staring at my walls, being like, holy fuck, the walls are alive. And so it took me a bit to kind of like come back down. And that was a significant moment that began kind of opening the doors for everything else. I'll share one more thing, an image that popped up there, which is also kind of funny.
Yeah.
So one of the images that popped up was an old Facebook photo that I was tagged in university. And one of the girls in our friend group tagged everyone in I don't know if you know Winnie the Pooh, but a
Yeah, of
Winnie the
course. Yeah.
Pooh cast. And guess who I was tagged as? Eeyore. Motherfucking Eeyore. The
Yeah.
sad donkey with a perpetual cloud over his head.
Mm.
And what I understood by that was in the sense of that's who I was. I had this sort of like, tortured philosophy, deep thinker. You've seen these
Yeah,
articles of like to be sad and think that the world is torturous and suffering is all there
yeah, I
is
can
a
relate.
sign of intelligence. Right. Yeah. Um, and also, so I was like, that was me. And I kind of put two and two together because one of the things we get taught by our parents as we grow up, and I come from I don't you have an interesting background. I can't put my finger. I don't know if you're Icelandic or Russian or uh, not exactly sure, but I'm Eastern European and Romanian, and so the whole like gray cloud across the land is kind of like it's not even just one person's head; it's like across everyone's head. And
Yeah.
so there's this. Whenever I was sad when I was young, my dad would say this proverb. He's like, Vlad, there's this old proverb. There's only good days and bad years,
Mm,
meaning if you're lucky, you get to smile once in a while.
mm.
And so that's just kind of one tidbit of like, a node that I kind of took and it just sort of always sat in my heart a little bit in my kind of outlook on life. So that was my filter, or we call in reality transurfing your amalgam on life. And then so since that ceremony, it never ends just in that ceremony, it continues. And then I got fascinated with the concept of this notion of what you're familiar with as the word manifestation. I don't use the word I try not to use the word manifestation as much because that word has been sort of
Yeah,
hijacked and charged with sort of like your quick fix, you
yeah.
know, if you do this one technique, you'll manifest faster, manifest $10,000 in your checking account. Theoretically, sure, but that's not what this is about. I think we're moving as a whole. We're moving into a new way of operating within reality, where it's not just sh- ma- changing, molding the clay with our hands and with our feet. The additional limb is utilizing our mental faculties. We are still in a physical world and in a physical realm, and so action is still necessary to a certain degree, but you can significantly improve your life or amplify your efforts by also using your, let's call them imaginative methodologies or processes or capabilities in some sort of way. And it's not just your imagination, there's also hard things, there's also things around balance and energy, but you know what I'm saying. And
So
then, yeah,
yeah.
sorry, I'll stop talking because
No, no, please
that
don't.
was,
But just to come in here, so
yeah.
reality transurfing, if someone doesn't know anything about it, is there a way that you can sum it up for them in one line?
Yeah, great you asked. My line for it is a conscious technology that allows us to apply the natural laws of the universe to define our own destiny and manage events
Yeah.
to a
Okay.
certain extent. Yeah, that's what I
So
would say.
and just to like, I guess, round that off is my belief and how I can relate to that is everything I experience, I have attracted. And that has always been my way of thinking
Hmm.
since I was a child. I
Hmm.
knew that everything was by design. So I just want to go back a little bit. When this unraveling was happening for you, did you disclose any information to people who were close to you? And if so, if their response was not in alignment with your thinking, because obviously they didn't experience it for themselves, what was your response to that? And did you perhaps even lose friends during this journey?
Interesting question. So I remember when I first came to, particularly, I was like, what the frick was going on? I thought the
Yeah,
world was this, and now it's like there's stars in the sky that are moving. Like, and I was
yeah,
just sharing it with everyone. And so some people thought I was a little bit loony, but I guess because I sort of my life to a certain extent when I was younger of already being a little bit kooky, it wasn't too far off from the starting point. And so I can't I can't say things just unravel naturally in terms of people leaving my life that were no longer in the vibrational field. And what I've learned over time, I try to convince people of this is the way that it is. Guess how many minds I have changed.
yeah.
If they're not already open, if their hand is not already open,
Mm,
it's impossible. I learned this through COVID. I was one of the I don't know where we don't need to go into like, the whatever. You know, COVID was a very visceral, weird
Yeah.
time that shook the rattled the cage of the entire world. And either you kind of, and I have no idea where you stand or other people stand, but you either put, in my opinion, I'll just speak from my perspective, you either stuck your head further deeper into the sandbar, to do the metaphor, the analogy of the ostrich. Forget exactly how that goes, but you know, like the long necked ostrich that sticks its
Yes.
head in the sand to kind of ignore things and double down on your doing mental gymnastics, or you kind of woke up a little bit more viscerally.
Yeah.
I kind of forget where I was going with that, but
The friends during that time, losing
oh
friends.
yeah, 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 yeah. Oh yeah. So I started speaking out right away. They're saying, "Don't do your own." Canada was also fucked when it came to that shit. Like we were like the most Prozac nation. Like they did anything they wanted to us. They would make us like we could walk into a restaurant with our masks on, but as soon as we sat down, we could take it off. What the f like,
Yeah.
that was like, you were just making they're just making fun of us now. And
Yeah.
so I was one of the first to stand up and be like, "Guys, I don't know about this vaccine. What are they saying? What do you mean you don't do our own research? It doesn't make any sense." And I was also at the trucker convoy, and so I lost a lot of friends through that, and at the exact same time, I also learned a lot through that. I learned that I couldn't change a single person's mind because if their belief structure is so rooted within themselves and they don't allow for the ability for that world to be shaken and they're not ready for that, then they'll never give in because if you remove that one pillar, then the whole castle falls.
Yeah.
And if they're not ready for that whole other castle to fall, then they're never going to allow for that one pillar to be removed.
So, is there an exercise or something really practical blending into the transurfing that you can help me personally with? And what I mean by that is evolving. Everyone is evolving. But again, if I can talk
Mm,
about myself, moving into this new season of understanding life the way that I do now,
mhm,
it's been really hard to maintain certain relationships with people, especially because I see everything for what it is.
mhm,
So sometimes it's also hard not to judge it and not to
mhm.
take it on. Is there something that I can practically do on a daily, maybe, if an old friendship pops up for me that's no longer? How can that empath part of me, I guess, be nurtured in a way?
I don't have like, breathing exercise, or it's a philosophy. And so actually this is wonderful that you brought that up. So there's a rule, it's called the transurfing rule, and it's be yourself and allow others to be themselves. And you just seriously, and it goes back into all these other things around balance and also the law of allowing, because your life has a particular flow. It has a flow, and you're either fighting and you're trying to rage against the waves or against the current, or you're a totally paper boat and that you're just allowing the current to take you wherever you are. And then there's another aspect, and you're like captain at the oar. And so you're allowing and you're moving with the flow of life, but then you're also directing it wherever it needs to flow. And so there's that kind of notion of allowing the flow. And you also have to allow people because they also came onto this into this plane with a particular experience that they wanted to have. And
Yeah.
so the more you push or try to change or be like, "Oh, what your ideas, they affect me, or you're sucking my energy or whatever." More pushing against against the wall just hurts you more. There's nothing that you can do except just allow for others to be themselves, and in the process also be yourself. And I think that takes a process, that philosophy, to move through. And then I think you just have to get a few scrapes and bruises as you adopt that new philosophy and implant it in the areas with people that, let's just say the word, trigger you. But when they trigger you, then you know that's an area where you're still not free.
Yeah, so it's basically every time that that does trigger
Mhm.
for me, it's the reminder that I haven't fully accepted myself as
Yeah.
a whole, and there are parts of me still missing.
Yeah, and you can see in other people like what's happened if you don't like something in another person, there's an element within you that is that you don't like. So I'll just use myself an example really quickly. I get triggered by people who are defeated. who like don't want to pick themselves up or continue, and I don't want to really use this language, but continue the fight in a sense, who like, I can't do this, like it's impossible, like all of this stuff. It like triggers me because maybe there's a part of me inside of me that also in one aspect of my psyche feels that way as well. And that's why I maybe like try to conquer myself so much.
Yeah, I can very much relate to that. I host a holistic workshop called We Are Sound. And
Mhm,
the whole intention behind that is to help people move into the unknown. And what does that unknown look for them? And initially, when I came up with the concept, it sounded really cool on my tongue. Whenever I spoke it, I would say, We are sound, helping people bravely move into the unknown. And I was like,
mhm,
this is great. I'm a really good teacher, but you obviously chose this theme because you
mhm,
yourself struggle very heavily. What does the unknown look? I'm not someone who's in the position of struggling with a life or death disease. So how can I vouch for what I know is the unknown? And the only way that I've recently discovered how I am now moving into the unknown is being an entrepreneur and moving into a new sector and a new startup that is very daunting, that I almost don't know anything about. And I have to almost school myself and go back to the foundation of what it means to go study, what it means to go do firsthand research, and then becoming part of that world. And what is that world? It's almost like being on that cocaine trip and seeing a star move and you want to jump on
mhm,
the star, but you don't know,
mhm,
is that star going to burn? Is it going to burn out? Am I going to drop from it? Is it going to lead me to another planet? And I think that's why these experiences are so important. There are many other ways that one can obviously go and experience these immersive transformational experiences. It doesn't have to be the ayahuasca or the cocaine and so forth. And I know that's not what we're saying. We're not advocating for drugs, not at all.
mhm.
But I do believe that we live in a world where something as beautiful as ayahuasca can really, it's medicine that can be used to make people realize that this flesh and these veins are, it's minuscule in comparison to who we are and what we can achieve. And that's actually something that I can deeply resonate with what you said. It's also very triggering when I see people, and a lot of my podcast episodes are about that. It is about, I've got one saying, the woman trapped in her brain. It's people who can't move on or to struggle to move on from the death of their loved ones and so forth. It I guess I almost want to go as far as saying my heart breaks because I say you can get through it one day at a time, and there are methods and influences that one can rely on, and that there is hope out there, and also that you're not alone. And I feel that is what's so beautiful about your teachings is every time I watch a video, Vlad, not one video I don't finish. Because every time I watch your message and your teachings and the way you teach it, I want to go from beginning to end. I want to nurture my soul by listening to the story from beginning to end, because I think that's what a lot of people, including myself, need to be reminded of is like context and understanding the story from beginning to end, and to know that you're worth playing the story from beginning to end and not just jumping into something and making your conclusions within the first 2 to 3 steps, especially as an entrepreneur, and seeing failing as the end, or not seeing failure as life lesson. And that there's so many more, it's just very, I always say it's various dots that are connecting you to that goal or to that thing. And that's actually going to lead me to my next question. So, how do we tell the difference between a goal that's truly ours and one that's just a pendulum's influence? How would you, especially again, I'm gonna
Oh,
myself.
Anna, you're speaking to my heart. Sorry to interrupt, but continue. Continue.
Yeah, yeah,
Finish your
no, that was
question.
it. That was it.
Okay.
I would, it's
Okay, yeah.
basically, I'm asking for advice as an entrepreneur.
Okay, that was amazing. Wow, and also just I gotta just put a stamp on the fact that that was a wonderful and beautiful stream of consciousness, first of all. And thank you for your question. It means that you've done your homework.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, because yeah, that made me smile. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so this is one of the most important and one of the kind of first things we need to kind of clear up when it comes to your own life and reality creation. And the most important question we have is what is our true goal? What path are we going to follow? So one of the first steps is to wake up, but let me talk about the goal. So a true goal is something that's after your own heart. I truly believe that every soul came onto this planet or this realm to experience itself through in a particular way, through a particular vibration, through a particular frequency, etc. And your greatest lifeline where true joy is experienced is on the path towards your goal, your true goal. It's not necessarily to reach your goal, but it's on the path towards that. And the reason because of that, I believe, is because there's some wonderful friction on that front. And you had a podcast episode talking about fear, and there's two quotes that I absolutely love. One is by Joseph Campbell, and the other one is by Carl Jung. Carl Jung one is where your fear is, that's where your task lies. And Campbell's is your greatest treasure lies in your deepest, darkest cave. And so I developed my own motto on that. And to always give you direction, if you're uncertain of what to do, where to go, you use fear as your North Star. And then some people go, like, yeah, so you want me to become homeless because I'm afraid? No, like, don't give me the obvious exception here, but
Yeah.
attach fear with also your excitement. And the reason why fear and excitement is really sexy and enticing is because imagine fear, you're like a circle, and fear is like your outer edges and border, and it's dark and it's scary because it's dark and you have no idea what's there. And so when you pursue the area of what brings you excitement, and that kind of makes your heart flutter, and then also follow your fear, and when you get into that cave, you illuminate it with your light, and you realize, holy shit,
Mm.
that wasn't so scary.
Yeah.
But something also amazing happens. You begin vibrating in the sense because, holy fuck, that's you expanding.
Mm.
And why is expansion important? Well, because that's what life is. That's what the universe is. That's what it all is. That's what creation is. It's constantly creating. It's constantly expanding. And so when you're going after your fear in the area of your excitement and you step into it, you love it so viscerally because you have just expanded and experienced something that is so true to your soul and to life. And so your
Yeah.
true goal is the thing that's after your own heart.
Mm.
It's one of the most important question that we need to ask ourselves. Is there one technique that you need to follow that you can follow? Not really. You you do some, if you don't know where to go, you first start working on yourself. Self development is so effing important
Mm.
because in life, there's only two directions. You're growing, you're expanding, or you're decaying and you're destroying yourself. And I can speak a little bit more about that because you can see that in people. But basically, if you don't know, that will kind of get the energy going. You need to have something that pulls you. In addition, yeah,
Sorry, so what is the red flag that people can look out for? What is the most common thing that you see in people's, I guess, shadow selves?
I'll give you an example. So you will have so Carl Jung also has this like notion called the second life. And there's this book. It wasn't by him, but it was by a Jungian. It was called Living an Examined Life. And basically, Anna, all that book was like follow your soul, because by your second life, your soul is always going to speak to you.
Mm.
It speaks a little bit softly in the first half. It'll be like, Anna, follow this.
Mm.
Hey, Anna, you're excited about this? Follow that.
Mm.
And the path is not always clear. It actually you have to jump off cliffs and stuff like that because life wants you to trust it that it's going to catch you. And so, but then after a while, if you ignore it, if you continue to follow the pendulums, and pendulums can be, we can talk about pendulums afterwards because it's um, it's a interesting, very interesting conversation, and they show up on the material world. They show up as all these different things. So that's societal expectations. It shows up in media. It shows up in your parents. It shows up in all these different ways, but it's energy beings or informational entities that are kind of pulling the strings. And so if you don't follow that voice, by the second half, it's going to pound even harder. And it's going to pound so hard it could lead to depression. It could lead to disease, and all it's asking you is to follow your heart. And so those are some of the big red flags that show up.
Yeah. Let's go into pendulums.
Okay. So, what are pendulums? So, it's one of the central concepts in transurfing, in the sense because in order for us to learn how to choose, and reality creation is really not about creation, it's about selection because everything already exists in what we call the alternatives space. And so, in order to learn how to choose, we have to first learn how to decline. And so, I'll go to the basics of what a pendulum is. A pendulum, at its fundamental level, is a thought form that has been developed by intentionally or unintentionally by a group of individuals who are thinking and behaving at a particular frequency. And so, if a group has a goal of some kind and they're thinking and moving in that direction, it develops a thought form.
Mm.
If the group gets big enough and time goes by long enough, then that thought form begins to become autonomous. And that thought form now is autonomous, so it's alive on its own. And what do all beings need to do? They are also needing to grow. And how do they grow? They feed, right? They need to eat. All animals, all beings are just constantly trying to feed. And these energy beings are feeding on energy. And the only way that they can feed on more energy is to acquire more what you call adherents or people in the group. And so they begin to subjugate the same people that created the pendulum now to its rules in order to sustain and continue the growth of the structure. Religions are pendulums, corporations are pendulums, university are pendulums. You have countries that are pendulums, sports teams that are pendulums. Pendulums also exist in the natural world. Pendulums are absolutely everywhere. And it's not necessarily all of the bad stuff that happens in the world is kind of due to pendulums, but you can't fight. Pendulums are just a natural aspect of our construct that makes it move in a particular way. And the thing that makes pendulums so destructive is because they make you abide by this rule of do as I do.
Mm.
Change yourself and betray yourself. And the reason why I say following your own heart is the greatest thing that you can do for me and for the world is because you're no longer following the world or the machine or the structure of this old world. You're now taking your energy away from there and you're putting it onto your own life path. Because the pendulum will do anything to stabilize its structure. And so they show up in all bajillions types of different ways. And so the entire world, the reason why, religion has gotten so weird and structured and just tries to create more adherence. And you see just, in Christianity early days, they just went around the world and tried to bring more people into Christianity
Yeah.
was because the pendulum just wanted more and more adherence. And pendulums fight each other for more and more adherence. You look at like a really clear example of that is in the states between the Republican and Democrats.
Yeah.
It's just two pendulums going at it
Mm.
and it's just weird. It's just weird to divide people like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's I guess what I always tell myself, I'm still part of the 3D world. When
Yeah.
I come out of my lengthy meditations and my gurus and my
Mhm.
psychic meetings, etc., like I'm always quite dramatically so reminded that, oh no,
Mhm.
wait, okay, this is great. And you feel quite aligned
Mhm.
and rooted and so forth, but you're still part of the 3D world.
Mhm.
And contrast is there to help us expand.
Yeah. Let me say
So
one more thing
go
before we
for it.
continue. Let me say one more thing.
Yeah.
Also, a pendulum is how you make your dreams come true. A star is born, but a pendulum lights them up.
Okay, so
And
I
it, yeah,
really want to go into this. This is so. Can you say that again? Can you just say that again?
a star is born, but a pendulum lights them up.
Whoa. Okay. Gorgeous, because I want to go into the importance of collaboration. Again, bringing it back to the
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. If you're a musician, if you're an artist, if you're
Yeah.
an actor, a writer, a director, whatever, especially when in the arts form, or you're someone who wants to go from a corporate field into a more artistic field. I feel
Mhm.
this is definitely where I'm personally at, is realizing the importance of collaboration. And I love the way that you explained the pendulum, because it makes me understand really why it is so important to collaborate. For example, this new venture of mine,
Mhm.
it is a collaboration. Now, prior to this new venture, I was very opposed to working with people. My track record of collaboration meant them stealing ideas, me being constricted. I usually get the visual of the bird in the cage feeling trapped, because I'm so immensely creative and can go anywhere in a conversation. I felt like if I was going to collaborate with someone, my power was going to be taken away. But now, and beautifully so, I'm in a space where I'm really understanding the weight of collaboration and how that ties into this pendulum. What is your and am I right in saying it like that, and saying, like, on this new business venture, collaborating with a business partner, and understanding that when we start telling people about the product and about the ideas, that's when we bring them into the pendulum swing, and people who feel they can't resonate with the pitch, or they can't resonate with the music, or whatever it is you're selling, is that just a very clear and obvious indication that they're just not in vibration and in frequency to your intention?
Yeah, let me just kind of put the point on collaboration. So, what's his name? Napoleon Hill also has a quote that no two minds can get together without developing a third mind. Maybe butcher that quote, but basically, and that third mind is the pendulum. And so the reason why it's called the pendulum is, as you just mentioned, that beautiful word of frequency. And so if you ever seen a tuning fork,
Yes.
whatever hertz it's at, yeah, you're a musician, a tuning fork, and then you put another tuning fork of a different frequency beside it. You
Mm,
hit that tuning fork, it doesn't affect that different frequency tuning fork. Then you put the same two tuning forks separated, right? You hit one of the tuning forks and you put a ping pong ball in a string beside the other one, you'll see that ping pong ball stall bouncing off. It's because they're at the same frequency.
mm.
And when two vibrations are at the same frequency, they create a larger vibration. It's the same frequency vibration, but it's a larger, more powerful vibration. And so that's why collaboration and bringing people into your storm creates a bigger storm. I know you had a I kind of I went on this track and I forgot what the second part of the question. It was around
Um,
frequency and if the
yeah, like,
people aren't resonating, yeah.
if
And
you
so if some
go out into the world with your art and people don't resonate it with it, especially artists, I get this a lot from people, especially people who are just starting out in the music industry. They go like, how do you keep going? How do you keep going when no one wants to kind of buy into your idea and into your brand? Like, what is your advice there?
Okay, yeah. So there could be a few things that are happening on that front. On one end, general pendulum music, it doesn't want to swing out from what it's normally used to or what's working for them. That said, if a star pops up where they're doing their own thing and they're utterly authentic and it's new and it's cool and people start resonating with it a little bit, then the pendulum has no other choice but to change. And that's why you see like stars like Taylor Swift, who in her last tour was called the Eras Tour. Yeah. Sorry, Eras Tour. I don't know why I keep messing that up. And so because she keeps like inventing herself into a new era, into a different style of music, into a different way, because she's following the new waveforms that are moving along.
Hmm.
This is energetically strategic. And so when someone might not be resonating or people aren't resonating with a particular musician, it could be the fact that like it could be on one end that the musician is trying to appeal to an audience and they're not really like have found their voice in particular and they're kind of like in two worlds. Maybe they're doing a little bit of themselves but they haven't gone all the way in. Another aspect could be the fact that they're creating too much importance in the sense of they're not following the natural flow of their own life, and they want this so badly
Mm.
that they're cranking the hose. It could be that that particular avenue of how they're creating music or being they're doing it because it's not really what they wanted, but it's like some being a musician or being a singer can be very enticing in a sense, but is that really your thing? And so it's really hard to say why,
I can relate.
you know yeah.
Everything. 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 The my body of work that was released in 2012 was authentic, and it was so rooted in I had my whole life to kinda write my first record kind of thing. So I had a lot of stories and a lot of history to pull from. And then my second record was I was overthinking it, I was obsessing over it. I made decisions out of a place of survival,
Mhm.
out of a place of appeal, wanting to be seen, desperately wanting to be
Mhm.
seen, but actually being angry and quite sad because the guy that was heading the record label at the time left. So I felt abandoned as an artist. There's so many things that tie into that. And then the third and fourth body of works, well, from there I changed my stage name and I changed my whole kind of persona and genre. And I'm finally now at a place where I am not in a place of survival. And I love what you said there about, wanting to be a singer, knowing that that is my purpose was to heal people through words and lyrics, but I don't want the fame attached to
Mhm.
that. And there was a part of me, especially in my early 20s, that I was deeply driven by wanting to be seen and wanting that fame. But now being older, my priorities have changed. And I was almost shown that you think success was equal to fame and vice versa.
Mhm.
And when moments of that was being shown to me, my shadow self was so on fire that I would self-sabotage. And I would do everything that my flesh wanted and not my soul. And I feel it was almost like I was being guided and protected throughout my life because whenever I would be in a meeting with one of the biggest agents or one of the biggest record labels, the meeting would not end the way that I would want it to end. And there was always deep disappointment to that because then I immediately started blaming my art. Maybe my art is not good enough.
Mhm.
I'm not young enough. I don't have enough TikTok followers, etc., etc. And I would go so deep into the 3D world that that next project in my music would be overthought. I would be like, OCDing on it, obsessively thinking maybe I should write this, maybe I should write that. And that is where things changed for me after literally breaking down to my knees and praying out loud. And I actually have a tattoo on my arm, and it's from the movie Life of Pi, where that little boy in the boat, he shouts up to the heavens, and I fuck, I want to get emotional just thinking about it, but
Mhm.
he shouts into the heavens and he says, "I am your vessel. Show me what to do." And I
Mhm.
feel like that was such a powerful moment for me because it was like my flesh keeps driving the wheel. My soul is so deeply wanting to tell me that there's so much more bigger at play here. Your followers, your social media, your whatever, it doesn't equal your worth. Like there, I need you to see the eagle eye view. And that's where it started. And I remember that was about 3 years ago where I made that promise to myself that I would never do that again. That I would never be in a place of needing and wanting it so much that I would die for it. And that's what I love what you said. All these components, every single component you just mentioned is exactly what I've been hearing from young artists. And they reach that point where they go, shit, this is not what I thought it is cracked to be. I don't know if I want to do this anymore. So, and I guess that's a beautiful place of where I'm now of like writing because I'm writing in collaboration with people who are like-minded, who you can feel you walk into the room with them, they're vibrating at the same frequency as you. Their intention is of such that it aligns with your work and your stories. And when that happens, it's such a clear indication for me that I am in a new season. And again, to what you said earlier, that new earth, that Taylor Swift Eras tour, moving with the seasons of life is part of that new earth.
Wow, that was incredible. Thank you so much. That was so powerful. Thank you for adding that context.
Well, you
Absolutely
started that.
beautiful.
Yeah, you
Absolutely
fired me up
beautiful.
to go there. So thank you
That
so
was
much
a
for that.
that was a powerful message.
No, thank you.
Incredible.
I appreciate that. So Sure. I mean, Vlad, I know this is not going to be the final conversation for us because, okay, so there's two more things. Am I correct in saying that you give one-on-one sessions for people where they can move into this reality space?
Uh, at the moment, I don't do that, but it's not against something that I will consider in the future. Right now, I have a school and community on skool.com/reality transurfing where I work with people sometimes one on one, like just like we have conversations one on one, but it's in a community school kind of format where all of my material is available there. It's also available for free from a training perspective online on YouTube. And there is if you want to kind of go deeper into this type of work. So if you really want to, how many times have you like done a course, read a book, saw a video, whatever it might be, got super excited for the first, weeks. We're like, I'm
Yeah,
going to
I have
change my life.
ADHD. I have ADHD, so I get
Yeah. And so this I created this in order for people to kind of really immerse themselves. So
great.
every single day I am bombarding you with this type of knowledge and also exercises, things to do,
Amazing.
all this, and then it gets much more magical than what we've just touched, not even the tip of the iceberg. And there's some stuff that we can do within reality transurfing and also the teachings of Tufti, which are both from Vadim Zealand, who's this like Russian quantum physicist, and he also like kind of channeled this type of work, or he pulled it from the alternative space, but it just resonated with me so much because it gave me it like literally just plucked the strings of my heart. And I also did the formal training in order to be in good graces to teach this type of knowledge. And so you can find me there. And if you want to learn more about this stuff, you can also go on my YouTube, which all the stuff is free. But if you want to go deeper and much deeper and just integrate this type of knowledge, you can find me in the community, and
I
we can have these
know.
kind of chats forever. Yeah.
Yo, same here, man. I know of so many people who are going to reach out and want that one-on-one session with you because it feels tangible when you collaborate. Feels it's such a auditory and visual and sensory like reminder that you're not alone. So, I mean, yes, thank you so much for all your teachings that are available online, but I know that people would really see it as a great investment to actually have you um I always want to say like a modern day therapist, but I guess that would
Hmm.
be illegal to say.
Hmm.
So just to conclude,
Yes.
you could leave the listeners with one sentence, almost like a mantra that captures the essence of transurfing. What would that be?
It won't be the mantra of transurfing, but and it kind of is because transurfing is one of the most ancient but also modern technologies. But you can find this is not, it's packaged as transurfing, but it comes from source, whether it's the Upanishads, whether it's the teachings in shaman and various traditional shamanisms, whether it's Taoism of the wave and the flow. And so this comes from source and of the natural makeup of reality. And so my mantra that I would share with the world is, and that you can always bring to yourself as a way of tuning your own frequency, is the following: I move as the river, I build as the breath, I choose from the center, I trust the unfolding, I amplify life with my being.
Gorgeous. Thank you. What an absolute blessing, Vlad. And I wish you all the best. And again, this is not going to be the last conversation, I know. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And for those of you listening, do go follow Vlad. Vlad, do you just quickly want to say your social media handles again?
Yeah, you can follow me. You can find other stuff. You just go to Instagram, VLADDAS. And then from there on, you can find me in all the different places. That's on Instagram.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vlad. And we'll speak soon. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. Join us next time on Anna Wolf in the Cabin. Remember to subscribe and leave a comment so we can steadily grow this community and gain the momentum to help people remind them that they're not alone and maybe even start asking themselves better and new questions. Till next time.